Welcome to Decision Space, the only show to take place right here in the space between the turns in your favorite games. I'm Brendan Hansen,
I'm Jake Friedman,
and this is the podcast about decisions in games.
and today we're doing a deep dive review of Duel for Cardia. And then in the second half of the episode, we'll be touching on a short topic on expansion modules, extra content in games.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. Cardia, Duel for Cardia, a game that is, I think, on its face, very simple, but offers a lot in terms of the type of gameplay that it sort of presents on repeat plays, but also offers a lot, I feel like, of design lessons, maybe, that I'm excited to get into. We'll see if that's borne out. And then we get to enter an age-old debate. Should designers tell you the ideal way to play a game, or should they give you modular content and let you pick the way to play it? I feel like that's a debate as old as board games themselves,
And
or
we're
as
going to
old
come
as
up with
modular
one
games.
definitive answer for
It'll
sure.
be so clean. And
That's what we do.
The correct one. Objective. Yeah.
That's what we do here on Decision Space. Clean answers to age-old questions. But before we get into that, some housekeeping. Brendan, would you like to read this new review? Whenever we get a review for Decision Space that we can find, we love to read it out on the show. So we got an awesome one.
Yeah. So this review by Fritz Broner is titled Serendipity.
Oh, no. It's not by Fritz Broner.
This review is titled Serendipity, and Fritz Broner is a new patron. They are disambiguated.
Welcome to the crew.
Thank you, Fritz. Okay, now on to the review. But seriously, Fritz, thank you. Now the review, titled Serendipity, that is not by Fritz. Fritz, thank you. I'm just trying to make this as confusing as possible.
What if it is? We don't know.
It was just, you never know. Okay, so titled Serendipity. Just had the crazy experience of getting Isle of Skye in a trade the same day that you guys covered it. Can't think of a better group of guys to get me both hyped and deeply interested in a game. I thoroughly enjoy your in-depth analysis and the way you talk about what makes a game tick. There's something magical about the way board games work. And ironically, you all do a great job of sharing the magic by taking as much mystery out of it as you can. Kind of like when you study physics or medicine, then realize the deepest layer is just unknown fantastical wonder. Thanks for your hard work that goes into each episode. Thanks for your awesome review.
I genuinely love that review. It always makes us so happy getting reviews, but this one made me feel very seen. So
amazing.
That rules. Thanks for sending in. And please, listener, if you're listening to the show now, review our show too. And we'd love to be inspired by you and read it out on the show.
Yeah, I think the well of reviews has run dry. So now's a great time. Also, Jake, I feel seen by this review because what was it? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was talking with Pete and Jake and Paul. And I was like, guys, I want to record an episode called Board Games Aren't Magic and dispel all of the ways that board games aren't magic. And I would say I got a tepid response. And this review has maybe pushed it from tepid to just cold. So I want to say thank you for the review and maybe dissuading us from making an episode called Board Games Aren't Magic. But I still kind of want to do it.
I read this review as like a passionate
they would
support
love it.
For that idea. Yeah,
totally. Because at the bottom, we'll get below the nuclear level. It'll be great. Okay.
Cardia, 2025, designed by Fauzi Bugida and Matteo Rivero.
This is a 2-player dueling card game in which, each player has a deck of cards. You're going to play some cards to the table and try to win. It's not a lane battler. Not really.
Yeah, we're going to have to unpack. We're going to have to unpack what dueling card game means, I think, in this
context.
Okay. Yeah, well, just in general, because this is not like a Magic the Gathering game, right? It's more like a game like Battle Line or Schottentotten or
Rift Force,
or maybe like the traditional game of war. But before we dive too deep into unpacking the magic of Cardia, let's do our personal reviews plus Solomon scale ratings. If you're new to this show, we like to, once again, take all the mystery away as much as possible right at the start by giving you our sort of impressions of the game, a synopsis of how we're feeling about it, kind of the bias that we're entering the conversation with. And we like to use the solemn scale, a 3-point scale, 1 for, everything up to just okay, 2 for good game, and 3 for superb, to put it
Yeah.
roughly.
So I get to go first?
Yeah.
Or should we just say our numbers on 3 as if we were playing Cardia? Just the dual review. Dual review.
And then we both just
And then we both
launch into a review over.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's perfect.
Okay. So we're going to do it?
Okay. We can do the number part. Okay, we'll do the number part.
On 3?
Yep.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
3. Let's go.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great. Do you want to go for it? Oh my gosh. It's you go.
Okay. All right. So for me, Duel for Cardia is I want to compare it to like a kind of a culinary experience. I was thinking about how to like put my appreciation for this game into understandable context. And I think like an excellent meal that you keep wanting to come back to is apt. This is not like a flavor bomb that's just going to, blow you away on first impression. It's not going to make you feel like you've never seen anything like this before or tried anything like this. It's not a brand new set of spices and flavors in a way that you couldn't have possibly conceived of before. But I think what it's doing is something that's even better than that, which is just like presenting to you with like a subtlety that is delicious, that makes you want to keep going back for like another bite and another bite and another meal. Every time you're like, I think I like this. Like I'm pretty sure I like this. I really like this, and it's something that I'm always gonna want to keep coming back to. So it's kind of like a excellent top of the line dish, but with more of a subtle kind of quality to appreciate the more you go back to it.
That's awesome.
So
I feel like
that's mine.
For me, Jake, Duel for Cardia is, oftentimes games, the hook will be that there's something really clever about the game design and that's what draws you in. Just something that inverts expectation. It's sort of like, wow, I'd never thought a game could do that before. And Duel for Cardia for me is not that at all. It seems totally disinterested in making the design itself feel all that clever, and instead wants to create opportunity for the players themselves to feel clever and reliably present clever, creative play with a really sort of limited toolkit for the players, which keeps it accessible and constrained. In practice, there's 2 decks, and we'll talk about that some. At the end of this episode, we're going to talk about how it's modular. One of the ways that it's modular is that Cardia is a rule set in which you can plug these different decks into. And whenever you play one of these decks, to me, it feels a bit like I'm playing the same choreographed fight over and over again with my opposing player. It's just all of the different punches and kicks and throws through windows or whatever in the action movie of Duel for Cardia are happening a little bit differently every time. And I'm trying to anticipate when the different beats in the fight are going to happen and get as much inside my opponent's head as possible. Not that it feels too much like a doublethink style Donkey Space game where I'm always guessing. But if I can understand a little bit, I can sneak out a little bit of advantage. So if I know you're going to hit high, I'll hit just one value lower to my benefit, hopefully. And that's Cardia. So it's clever, it's approachable, but it's clever from the perspective of making the players themselves feel clever. And that's what I really love about Cardia. It's unassuming. And I think it's impressive in maybe borrowing your metaphor. It's like a ratatouille. It's not like a beef Wellington or whatever.
Right. Yeah, totally. It's not the $60 steak or $100 steak or whatever.
Exactly.
Really nice filet cost you at a fancy restaurant, but it's the kind of thing you want like every week.
Sure.
So that's Cardia. I'm actually kind of surprised. I thought I was higher on this one than you are, but excited that it got you up to appreciate it on that highest possible level. a
Okay,
3 out of
let's
3.
do this really fast because if
Okay.
this part of the episode is about us giving context for our experience of the game, Jake pushed me to play Duel for Cardia. I don't know how long ago was this ago, Jake? 3 months ago, 2 months ago,
We've been
something like
playing
that.
this game for months together. This is
Yeah,
like a deep dive, long in the making, I think,
yeah.
which is cool because it's been a while since we've been able to like sit so long with the game. And it also came to the point where like, are we even going to do the episode, or are we just going to keep playing this weekly forever?
I think we started playing this when tag team came. When we were playing, I was really pushing you to play tag team,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
you were really pushing me to play Duel for Cardia. And I was like, Jake, I don't know, it's nothing on tag team. And you were like, no, 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 just like keep playing, you're gonna enjoy it. And I was like, Jake, this is dumb. I don't like this game at all. And I just didn't get it. And the more I played it, the more I appreciate it. So this is a game where truly you convinced me to dive in and stick with it. And I think it took 3 or 4 plays before I was like, okay, yep, this is good. And
This
then
is
by
good.
play 20, I was like, this is great. And by play 30, maybe play 35, I was like, oh, I'm understanding why this
There's
is so
something
interesting.
here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It only took that many plays.
It's like the
No.
35th kettle corn that you eat, and you're like, this is some of the best kettle corn I've had in my life.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, let's jump into the like kind of game rules overview. So, do you want me to take a quick stab at this
Sure.
one?
Yeah. Give it a
So,
rip.
the way Duel for Cardia works in its simplest form is each player shuffling up an identical deck of 16 cards. Each card is numbered 1 to 16. Each of those cards has a unique power. But the same unique power in both decks. The decks are exact mirrors of each other. And then the way you play this game is each player gets a hand of cards. You will be playing one card face down and then simultaneously flipping them up. The person who played the card of a higher value wins one of 5. I don't know what they are, like medallions, crystal
Amulets. Yeah.
amulets that you need to win the game. It's a race to winning 5 of these duels. And the player who played the lower number is not it is not all lost because you are the only player that gets to activate the power on your card for that duel. So sometimes you'll be desperately wanting to win the duel. Other times you'll be desperately wanting to activate your power by playing just underneath your opponent. Um, in the effects, there's 2 different decks. There's a lot of different effects. They can range from like discarding both cards, or if you somehow manage to win with the 16, the highest, or sorry, if you manage to lose with the 16, the highest valued card in the deck, you could just win the game instantly. And then you're told to play best 2 out of 3 matches to determine the winner of the duel. And it plays in, 10, 15 minutes to get a quick match of Duel for Cardia in. I should mention also the game could also end in another way, which is decking your opponent. So some of the cards have sort of a mill effect, meaning if you lose with them to activate the ability, it will either discard cards out of your opponent's hand or discard cards from the top of their deck. So it is possible in a prolonged duel, if there are many ties, that the result could come down to, in fact, who runs out of cards first.
And the more you play, the more likely there will be ties. Because from my experience playing with Jake, at least, you develop these little metas with each other of what cards you probably want to play when. And it's not necessarily a given, but it's not what you just said on its face, Jake. It seems really unlikely you would ever get to the point where you got through all 16 cards, right? If someone just has to win 5 to win, at most, right? That's like 9 cards out of 16. Could we really get through them? Okay, you can discard a few. Maybe that's 9 cards out of 14. Are you really going to tie 5 times? And yes, there are games of Cardia, Duel for Cardia, where you're going to tie the exact card in the identical deck against your opponent 4, 3, 4, 5 times. And it feels really exciting and cool at times. And there's times where you're trying to tie. And it's actually gamified. One of the cards in um, the base deck, the first deck 1, is the Judge. It's an 8 value card that says if you lose with this card for the rest of always in all past card battles and all future card battles, you win ties. So players are sort of struggling as you're going through who's going to be the person who's going to win the judge and win the ties. And then there's another card, the mediator, the 4 value card, that says if you lose with it, it's actually a tie. So it's set up that you're going to try to create these ties and fight for who gets to be have the tiebreaker. And both of the decks have these sort of mechanical hooks, and there's a few of them. We might talk about them as we sort of go on, that push and pull the system in different directions mechanically, even just by 3 or 4 cards that sort of work together to pull the decision space in one way like that. Let's explore how this can create ties and gamify that as a
Yes.
win condition. Yeah.
Right. And it's so cool too. I think, you're always bringing us back to this idea of board games being like fundamental tools for like empathy,
Mm,
especially these like dueling fighting games. And
sure.
this one it really cuts to that quickly where you play a few games against somebody and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, we both played the 5 right there. Now we both played the 9 right there. Wait, now we both played the 11. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we are really on the same wavelength. And it's just so funny and cool when that happens. I said we would talk a little bit about like, okay, what is a dueling game here? I
Mm,
think it makes sense right here before we get further into characterizing the decision space, because I think in some ways this game right? It shares some more DNA with the classic card game of war where you're just flipping cards off the top of the deck and hoping to beat your opponent than
higher
it
value wins.
does
Yeah.
with something like Magic the Gathering. Just in the structure, you're just you're flipping cards, higher value wins. Um,
To be clear
but
though, you have a choice in which ones you're flipping. But yeah.
right, yeah, you have a
Yeah.
hand of cards you're playing. So it'd be like
Yep.
playing War if you drew
Could
5
choose
cards
here
and
from your hand.
chose
Yeah,
which
yeah.
one to play or whatever. So
Yep.
I mean, but like that similar structure, I mean, it is not one of these games where you're trying to get resources right, and you're trying to like find the right cards. I think like games like Magic are really more, or like Keyforge, are more like about like resource efficiency and sequencing games,
Mm.
where this is more of like, we say duel, we're talking about like 3, 2, 1 duel, like flip up the card and see what happens. That's what's happening here.
So I think in both these cases, there is a degree of resource efficiency here, but it's hidden. And the resource that you're trying to play with is how much did you spend to get the effects on cards to manipulate the board, right? So if I play a 1 against your 16, well, in that case, maybe it's fine. Because the 1 discards the opposing card. But let's say I play a
That
1
feels
against.
great.
Yeah, that's changed the example. I play my 5 against your 6. Um, that's fine. I play my 5 against your 16. Uh, Not as great as maybe playing the 14 against your. Anyway, I'm
Well,
too in the weeds. I want to respond to your broader
yeah,
question, but go on.
it totally yeah,
It totally
we could
depends.
talk about that more. It
Yeah, we
totally
should.
depends, because like if I'm like, oh, I got a win with my 6, hell yeah.
Yeah, sure,
I'll
sure, sure,
take
sure.
that.
We should get in the weeds later on that because I think
Okay,
that is one of
okay.
the things that makes Cardia interesting and creates a messier heuristic space than you would expect for a game this simple. But here's my rub on what I think a dueling game is, because I think that Cascadia at 2 players, not a dueling game.
Right.
Because we're each building in that type of game. It's a 2-player game that is zero sum, more or less in nature. We're pulling from the same tile pool, but we're each doing our own thing in our own play space. And I can think about what you're doing, but the game doesn't necessitate it. So for
Mhm.
me, a dueling 2-player game is a zero sum 2-player game in which I have to consider your actions and your choices to inform my own. So whether that's Magic or Keyforge or Airland and Sea or Rift Force or Battle for Cardia, Duel for Cardia. It's not Battle for Cardia, Duel for Cardia, Tag Team. All of these games feel like dueling
Yeah.
games to me.
It's cool. Yeah, I'm not like opposed to like categorizing them all the same on Board Game Geek or whatever. Like, do
Sure.
whatever you will. I'm just trying to give some context of like how this game feels to play.
How about as an aside, categorizing this game on Board Game Geek as a trick taking game? That would be a fraught decision that Board Geek has made. In fact, I would say for sure
Wait,
this is not a trick taking game.
it says trick taking on this
Yes, Jake.
on Board Game Geek.
People are so. We need to help the world.
Dude, oh my god, what the heck? That is
Everything
absurd.
is trick taking all the way down. Anyway,
I
this
mean,
is not.
auction game, sure, but trick taking game, no way.
Okay,
All right,
so
let's do the
characterize-
decision space thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is so we like to, sometimes at the start of these sort of deep dives, we like to characterize it to give a sense. So Cardia is a waning decision space game, right? You start with a hand of cards and you're going to play out those cards, and the options that you have available to you in that hand, but really in your pool of cards, is going to dwindle as the game goes on. It's going to wane as the game goes on. If you're playing deck one, you might get even more information about the cards your opponent has in their hand as more are discarded. So the uncertainty is narrowing. Towards the end of certain of these duels, when the tension has really built, I might be actually card counting and saying, okay, Jake has the 7, the 9, and the 12. Which one do I think he's going to play? And that really matters, like right now. And I think you feel the winning nature in the sense that sometimes in the beginning of a game of Duel for Cardia, it's a little bit fast and loose how you're playing cards because you're just trying to get a feel for how the board state's going to develop. And there's this inflection point, usually 3, 4 hands into the game, where it's like, okay, this is what I'm working with. This is the position I've ended up with. Now I need to solve the puzzle of this round of Duel for Cardia in terms of what are my win conditions going to be and how can I navigate from there? Am I just going to play a bunch of high value cards and win that way? Am I going to go for the judge and try to set up ties? Am I trying to force discards? What are the key cards going to be? Did Jake get an early judge and I need to play a void mage that lets me remove the ongoing token from the judge to take away Jake's win con, right? Like all of a sudden the wheels are spinning. So for me, waning, and it starts pretty fuzzy and then gets much clearer as the game goes on.
I think the clarity is really interesting to the point you made. It gets to at the beginning of the game, right? Doesn't make sense to do much card counting because you know everybody has the same cards, but you don't know what they have in their hand, right? You have a hand of is 5 cards, I think, in the base version of this with no funny business going on. So like not only could they have anything, but you don't know, what they've got in their hand. But yeah, about halfway through, now it's like, okay, I can start doing a little arithmetic in my head of saying like, okay, if I know he doesn't have the 4, right? So that maybe like opens up the avenue, right? Where you can start doing that, like, okay, the 7 makes sense if he has this, or this. The 9 makes sense if he has this, or this. Okay, so he's more like, so I'll do the 7 or whatever. So it's definitely feels like it's getting like clearer and clearer in a way where you're not like a like the frog in water heating up or whatever. It's like you feel it every turn, more clarity, more clarity, more clarity. But the other thing I wanted to say about it that I think is so interesting is like the first few rounds of the game don't really feel random either, despite your opponent could have anything. Like it almost feels a little bit like chess like to me, where there are some cards that just make a lot more sense early. In some cards, you mentioned the Void Mage, so that's a card where you can remove one of the ongoing abilities that's been activated, or a modifier increasing the strength of something or decreasing it. You're never going to play that on turn 1, right? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
There are cards on the opposite end where it's like, this is a great thing to play early in the game. And everybody kind of knows what that is. So there are sort of like, I think there's like an obvious meta to the point where I've heard some people complain about this game that it feels kind of rote because people are just sort of like doing the same stuff early. But then that creates the opportunity to go one level up and sort of, if I know everybody wants to play the 6 or the 5 on their first turn, maybe it's a good opportunity to play the 7 or something, or just go right underneath it or right above it. Whatever makes sense with your hand. But then, of course, people could be like, all right, well, they're doing that, so maybe I'll do this other thing. And then if they're doing that other thing, then you want to just go back to level one. So it feels like while it is random, there's also more that you could expect and kind of riff off of than it would otherwise appear.
I'll mention this because I think other people have played both decks a lot against the same player will have had a shared experience. And sometimes it's fun just on Decision Space to talk about shared experiences that we've had in games with our audience. And when we played the first deck a bunch, and then we took a break from the game. And then we came back to it and we're like, let's play the second deck a bunch. And within maybe 3 or 4 games, it was clear that the opening move was play your tax collector. Right? This is the value 4 card that if its ability gets triggered, you add a 4 power token to it. So it becomes effectively an 8 value card. And that card, it's a really good opening because it's flexible, right? It's essentially going to beat on the first play the 5, 6, or 7, and it will tie with the 8 if your opponent plays any of those. And if they play a 3 or a 2 or a 1, well, then you probably just win anyway. And also,
yeah, you're happy with that exchange.
You're happy with that exchange. So you're covering a lot. So we developed a meta where we were just playing tax collectors. But then to your point, very quickly slid into, okay, if Jake's going to play a tax collector, what can I be playing to take advantage of the fact that he's going to play the tax collector? Okay, I'll play my 9. Because then he just feels dumb that he played the 4, triggered the ability, but he doesn't win with it. So then it's kind of a problem to fix for him. And I found that really fun. But yeah.
And then sometimes you are looking at your opening hand and it's like, I don't have a 4 or a 9. Right. And where does that leave you?
Yep.
So yeah. It does feel kind of like chess like, kind of with the opening gambit that you very quickly, I mean, there's 16 cards. So it's not like you have to read a strategy book. It's like you very quickly identify what cards make sense early and both players will become on the same page. But unlike chess, sometimes you can't just move your, I don't know, pawn to e4 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a pawn available there.
You start with all your high value cards. You're forced to move your powerful stuff early, which can be a disadvantage. And how do I get out of this pickle? We were playing a game that you ended up winning, where my lowest card was an 8.
I blundered and then you blundered. I don't know if you caught that.
This is so yeah.
You had it.
Do you know? So there's this card. Jake and I ended up in one of these situations where it was our 9th turn. And on the 8th turn, I played a card that let me ambush Jake. So basically choose for him to discard all of a certain suit. And then on my next hand, I played the Palace Guard card, which is the 7, which says choose a faction and your opponent can reveal a card. If they do, you don't gain 7 power, but if they don't, you gain 7 power. So it turns your 7 into a 14. That's amazing. So I played the Ambusher. It worked. I got Jake to discard a color, and we were playing async. So I forced Jake to discard a color, and then I took a break for a little bit. And in my head, I knew I was setting up this combo. I was like, oh, I got him. This feels so good. And then I go to do it, and I pick the color that I didn't actually call, I think is what happened.
Yeah, this is so stupid, but like the mistake I made in that same turn was I did the card counting thing, and you had 2 cards in hand and 1 card in your deck, and I was like, oh, perfect. Brendan only has like the 4, 5, and 6. I can play the 10 and nothing can beat that, but I forgot that you had already put a card face down. So I was like, discount.
Anyway, that's amazing.
Classic.
So good. So as we navigate sort of talking about Cardia and characterizing the decision space, what do you think is what's so delightful about this? Or do we talk about the mechanics here, or what? I think there's this idea that we are clearly proponents of, that sometimes a narrower game can give you a more meaningful decision space, because you can almost, or at times, apparently not us, given the example we just gave, but you can hold the whole game, the whole decision space in your head, and try to like solve the game theory type, you can try to solve the game of if my opponent is acting rationally, they would do this. So I'm going to do this, but maybe they're not acting rationally. If they're being a donkey, what do I do and how do I adjust? And I think Cardia gives you a little bit of that. but it also has enough that at the beginning it tricks you into thinking that it's not that, which I really love. Like a game that goes from broad to small. So the breadth of it at the beginning, to your point, you don't always, it's not like we're just starting with 16 cards. You start with a hand of 5, so it's a random starting point. Gives you a lot of variability, but the destination is always the same. And the destination is always really tight decisions that are tense after you've spent 6 or 7 turns building up to it. And it never, for some reason, that arc, even though it's almost always the same, never gets old for me in this game. It's
Right.
always just as tense.
I
Why?
think I think it's like the quality of decision is just really high, right? Like we
Mm,
just kind of talked through considerations on the first play,
yeah.
and those are very different than your considerations on in the final 3 cards, right?
Yeah.
Where you're both sitting on 4 amulets or whatever, and exactly what cards your opponent has, and then it becomes exactly donkey space, right? You put in the notes here a sprinkle of donkey space. Like for me, I feel donkey space more
Constantly.
profoundly in this game than I did in tag battle or
Yeah.
tag
Tag
team.
team. Yeah.
Excuse me. Dang it, I still do. And I think it's because of that. Like I feel like I can just like hold more of the puzzle in my
Mm,
head,
yeah.
which makes it much easier for me to have the mental bandwidth to think like, okay, I know that Brendan has the 7, 2, and 16, and
Yeah.
he knows that I have these cards, right? If I need to, play my get this card to activate. And as long as he doesn't play the 2, it will activate and I'll win. But he knows that. So is he going to play the 2 now?
Yeah.
It's like maybe I should just let it rip because he's more cards now. And if I don't let it rip now, then he'll have a 50-50 shot of getting me.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that is like where the game often ends up, not every time. Sometimes you can kind of checkmate your opponent before or get checkmated before it
Sure.
gets to that. Um, but to me that's just like very very rich donkey space, and it's interesting that it kind of becomes like this crystal clear manifestation of that from a place of like a much more opaque donkey space where it's like if he has it he'll probably play the tax collector, right?
Yeah.
So I should do this, but even that in its of itself, to me that's donkey space too.
The richness of what you're talking about, I think, is a reward for repeat play. And we often on the show talk about how we love games that reward players for playing them more because it feels good to learn and explore, right? It feels good to start a game, have it be opaque. The more you play, the more you learn, the less opaque it feels, the more informed decisions you're making. Overall, as people who like to play games more than once, that's just rewarding and great. And I think the thing that you've made me realize, Jake, is the brilliance of Duel for Cardia is that it actually kind of is it has the potential for a really good first play because it's so simple and accessible. Like immediately the hook, maybe I wasn't being charitable because the hook of whoever plays the higher value wins the individual card interaction, but the person who played the lower value gets a power is like, oh, that's interesting, right? That's cool. I can
Mm-hmm.
grok that enough to like know that things are going to happen. And when I lose something, I get something back and it feels good and it invites you to try to be clever with it. So your first play, I mean, maybe not in my case because I said the first 3 plays weren't all that great, but there's something
your tag
was
team. You have your
yeah.
tag team colored glasses on.
I did, but I think that I do think it leads you in if you're not obsessed with another game at the time, but then it offers a lot at the end. So it's maybe a really great case study in having a nice on ramp for players into something that's going to give you more, but is gentle with its first play in the way that something like Medina that you guys talked about in the last episode, sort of classic game with a very open decision space that definitely rewards repeat plays, does not. Because the first play of Duel for Cardia, at least you like okay, I guess I play a high card, and then you sort of see how that goes. Whereas in Medina, it's sort of like there's no I guess. You just have to do something, you know. And
You're
I
like, you mean I
also,
could play anywhere?
yeah,
Like what the hell?
what would I do? Yeah, but I also love the. So let's talk about the 16 and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
3.
I wanted to say, like, just one, put one other sort of fine point on it, which is I think that the decision space is partially, so rich like you're talking about because like okay, for a game that is inherently kind of random and luck based in the way like that like rock paper scissors is kind of luck based, right?
Very,
Uh,
yeah.
right. But it has that kind of element like so I think one other trick that just makes the decision space feel so rich and the game feel so satisfying to come back to is I think it is an incredible testament to the design of the game and the cards in it that like the results always to me anyway, I'm curious your opinion on this, feel so earned. Like when I
Yeah.
win a game, I feel smart. I feel like
Yep.
okay, I really did well with my cards, tactically and strategically. Um, and when I lose a game, I'm like, damn, like I made a mistake here or here. Like I could have done things differently. Like it didn't. It for a game that's literally just kind of flipping cards and seeing what the result is. It doesn't feel like a coin flip, at least to me. It feels like
Yeah.
really earned, fair results, which I think is kind of amazing for the structure that the game has.
Yeah. I think the fact that I'm sitting here wondering as a thought experiment, if we sat down to play together and said, pick the best hand to start with, that I don't know that we would pick the same hand repeatedly, tells me enough that what you're saying is definitely true. Because part of me is like, can't you just get a dealt a bad hand of cards in Cardia? And like, maybe, but the powers are so flexible that there's usually, it feels like a path forward to a victory somewhere hidden in there. To your point. And like, yeah, so I agree with you.
Yeah, cool. Let's talk about the design of the cards and
Yeah.
maybe frame it around what you said earlier about how you can like find value with like a
Mm,
hidden resource in this game. I'm really interested in that conversation. So the way
yeah.
we won't go through every single card, but like I think one thing that's cool about this game that I think is really smart and not an intuitive design is we see so many games that have like El Grande, one of the best games ever, has a design feature where it's like high number, bad effect, right?
Yep.
When I play my highest card, I don't get to move any caballeros into my court. Where Cardia inverts that and it says highest card, most powerful effect.
Yeah.
Second highest card, super powerful effect. And then the lower cards, all the effects are like good and useful at times, I would say, but like they get much more situational.
Yes. Like the 3 value card, the surgeon says add -5 influence to the next card you play. That's a
Yeah.
weird tool, right?
That
You're
might be
not
the
g
worst card.
I think I yeah, it
Like I hate playing that card.
the
It's like
surgeon is not a very good card. It's true. Because your chances of winning with it are incredibly low. The best thing to play it against is a void mage, probably, if you're in a position where you
or
can give
yeah,
a
or
void
if they
mage to your
burn their
opponent.
one to get rid of your three,
You feel amazing.
you're like,
Yeah.
dude, you baited so
Yeah.
hard.
The one actually, so the one says the opposing player discards the card that they played, and you discard your one,
Yeah,
and then you go again.
the space
In
deck,
the
which we should probably just use as our example. And but yeah,
I think so. Maybe in this one case, I'll give the deck two version of the card too, because I think it helps illustrate some of the differences, and then we'll talk about deck two later.
okay,
But the one in deck two says give the opposing player's card that they played against it negative power until this battle is a tie. So if you play the one against the 15 in deck two, it gets -14 power and it's a tie. And there's reasons why that's really cool for deck two that we'll talk about later. But for deck one, you discard the opposing card. So for the three, it's -5. For as Jake, you said, for the 16, it's you win the game. But the joke here, right? The trick is that it's very difficult to lose a flip with the 16 because there is no 17 to play it below. So you have to find a way to do something like the surgeon where you're playing your 16 when it's going to be -5, so it comes out as an 11. But if you play a surgeon, then the opposing player knows, oh, are they going to try to play
yeah.
They're
I feel like
16. Okay, I'm gonna sandbag. Yeah,
that's
that's
like
the
the only
value of
thing
it.
that's like good about it. But
Yeah.
then, you can kind of force your opponent to get the one out of their hand if they have it, like
Yep.
because you just can't die to the 16.
Sure.
But is it really? But you've still lost the amulet. Like, is it worth it to give up an amulet for that? No.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really like that interaction. It's really cool to have a piece in a game like the Jin, the 16 value card that says you win the game. That when you first look at it, it just you go, what? Right? And then you're excited. It's sort
Yeah,
of
you're like,
like,
how can I? How
how
can
can I
you
do this?
pull this off?
Yeah.
That also, I think, as much as I played this game, I think I have one single like
And
16 activation win.
yeah,
Like, it's just so hard
it's
to
really rare.
do. But it's good. I mean, that's just a fun thing to have in a game where it's
Yeah.
like it's almost it's almost like video gamey, right? Where it's like I want to get that achievement,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
because I know that is possible. Yeah.
Um, do you have other cards you want to talk about in the base deck?
Well, okay, so I mainly wanted to just kind of like talk about the like how neat I think the design and structure of these is. But will you tell me what you're talking about when you say like the hidden resource of like
Yeah.
because I'm not sure I agree, but I want to hear you out.
I'm not sure. I don't think it's as simple as I was suggesting it was
Okay.
because there's so many different interactions in the game, right? The one against playing the one against your opponent's a high value card feels amazing. So in
Right.
that case, I want to be at this huge disparity. Um, if I and it's always it depends with Cardia, right? If I play my Void Mage and I have the Void Mage is the 2 value card, it says that you can remove all modifiers or ongoing tokens from any other card. So basically, you can use it to win a past battle that you lost that really matters, or lose a past battle that you won. There's instances where you might do that. You can affect the past. So I, if I'm playing that, Jake, I would much rather play that against your 15 if I know I'm going to lose than against your 3 or your 4. So I think that the game really invites you to think about, is my opponent going to play really high or are they going to play low, and is this a card that I'm fine with losing by a lot, or is it better to come in close? And trying to think of examples like that. Like the
Yeah.
Magistrate is a 14 value card that says activate the play effect of a card you've already played. There,
But could even be
you
the
know,
16.
right. Exactly. There, I'm fine to win with it, but I would much rather typically find a way to play it against your 14
Yeah.
your
I
15 or your 16, right?
Yeah, I think a heuristic that makes sense in most cases is like if you if your opponent is playing high, you want to play like just underneath them. Like playing a
Yes.
14
Yep.
into a 15 is amazing. Playing a 15
Yes.
into a 16 is amazing. But if your
Yep.
opponent's playing low, you want to play just above them.
Yep.
Like if I know you're playing a 5, I definitely want to play a 6, If you're playing a 6, I'm very happy to play a 7 or an 8. Because the winning with low cards it's just going to make you put you in a stronger position. But
Yes.
like when does like where exactly is that line? Like, do I want to play is it better to like activate the 9 or win with the 9?
Right.
um
That's where it
and
gets
then
tricky.
also uh there's so many other kind of like factors that make the decision space like resist simple heuristics, which is like
Yes.
I'm 2 amulets ahead, so I just care less like about winning this next battle, right? It's better to like make sure I'm kind of closing out your potential avenues for getting back into this game. And
Yep.
then there's also like effects on the board, where it's like, okay, maybe I'm 3 ahead, but there's also 3 ties, and I know you still have your 8.
Right.
That's gonna make you win all the ties, or so like you kind of have to track a lot, and all those things are keeping decision space rich by keeping the kind of considerations always changing in a way that feels very Magic the Gathering like, right? Where you're kind of like it's all about like understanding the state of the game and using that to influence the decisions you have.
I think what you just said gets at what I was trying to articulate really perfectly. So thank you. If you win, you want to win by one, typically. But if you want the effect, you want to lose by one, typically. Right?
Right.
Oftentimes. That's how you're going to get the most value. Not always, but oftentimes. And I think there's cards that play with that. We talked about the tax collector, right? Where it's the 4 value card in the second deck. And if you lose with it, you add 4 power to it. So it punishes the other player for trying to play too close in value to you. Or the Palace Guard that we talked about, the 7 in the base deck, that's a 7, but it has a conditional way for it to get 7 more power. So it shuts
And
down that game. Cardia, yeah, it looks for
and,
contradictions in its own heuristics.
and just the simple fact that, like we were talking about, where the most powerful effects are at the top, also inverts that, where it's like you don't want to win by just one with the 16 because the 15 and 14 and 13 have like really scary effects that you'd rather your opponent not activate. Like, so when you're playing your highest cards, you'd actually prefer to win by a healthier margin
Yeah.
in a lot of cases. So it does, I think, resist a lot of simple heuristics, which is a testament, you know, to the design, I think, of the game, and also to the fact that it's not like, for a game that feels so simple, right? And mechanically it is so simple. I think the designers, have really distinguished themselves by resisting kind of like game design heuristics in a way that would make things, I think, become like rote and less interesting much faster.
Part of what's so cool about that too, Jake, is I think there's a lot of games that the hook of the game is what you do now will affect what you can do in the future. I'm playing an engine building game. I'm going to add this new piece to my engine that's going to make my action economy more efficient, and I'll make more stuff so I can make more stuff in the future. And won't that be so fun when I get to a future turn? And Cardia is so different because we talked about how the early turns of Cardia, they almost feel a little bit less impactful because you need the board state to develop, because so often what makes the heuristic fuzzy is the conditional if something is good in retrospect. So what I mean by this is cards like the Swamp Guardian. This is a high value card. It's a 13. So this is one of those really high value, powerful effects like we talked about. And it says when you activate, it says take one of your other played cards back to your hand and discard its opposing card. That could be a huge swing, right? If you're taking a card that you got to activate the effect for against a high value of your opponent's card, and it's a high value, that could be the deciding factor in the whole game. So, but activating that early is terrible. If there's not a card that I want to pick up because I've only been winning them, that doesn't do me any good. We had this moment earlier, right, where I was like, "Oh, I could play this. I could play my Swamp Guardian, and if I win with it, fine, I'd be in a good spot. But if I lose with it, it's actually going to be calamity because I can't pick up anything good with it. So and all of this only matters not because what that would do for me in the future, but what has already happened in the past and how I can take advantage of it. So I think that's what's so cool about Cardia and creates this heuristic fuzziness, is so much of the power of cards is impacted by what cards have already come out as much as they are informed by what will still come out. Because it has this line, you care so much about what's already come. And it
Yeah.
puts it there for you to look at and makes it accessible in the way that maybe a trick taking game, when the cards get played, get put into tricks and hidden. So you don't have to remember that these things are happening.
Yeah. And I mean, and just the fact, like, as we're talking about this, the fact that, like, okay, if you win, that's good. If you lose, that's good. Just on
Maybe.
its face is
Yeah.
like, well, in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're getting
Yeah.
something no matter what. On its face is like, it just creates a really interesting question of like, well, then how do I get ahead?
Create
And there
advantage. Yeah.
can be these situations where you just lose, right? Because you lost with the Swamp Guardian and you didn't get to pick anything up, or you get beaten by the tax collector because you played the 6 into it, so you didn't get to activate your thing and you lost, and it just feels so devastating when that happens. And still, there's opportunities to fight your way out. So
Yeah.
I think, Brendan, I think that is what Duel for Cardia is all about. And there are tons of expansion modules in this game. I really want to make sure we leave some time to talk about kind of game modules in general. So
Yeah.
rather than like going through specifically like what's in deck one versus deck two, or what these locations are. Do you want to
Yeah.
just give like a very brief like overview um, of like what modules exist in this game and like your just like treetop opinion of them all?
Yeah. So Cardia, as we mentioned, has these two decks. So in its most basic form, all of the pieces are modular because you could pick to play with deck one, which has mirror versions, right, of values 1 through 16 and what those do, or deck two, which has totally different cards and mirrored versions of what those cards do. And those decks feel really differently. The types of things you can do and some of the win conditions that you're going for are just different. Deck two is more so about setting up lots of power on cards and moving it around. And deck one is more so, can I set up these ties or can I make my opponent discard things? And then the rule book gives you the permission to say, so you could play with deck one, or you could play with deck two, or what you could do if you wanted is you could pick some cards from deck one and some cards from deck two. And so long as you both have an identical deck, you could play that way. And that might be cool. You could try that. And if that's not enough modular stuff for you, you could also here's these location cards that have global rules that totally change the base rules of the game and add something like if anyone wins 3 interactions in a row, they immediately win.
Yeah, or we since we like to talk about the decision space, we just played with a location that turned the game into a punctuated waning game where you're playing down your hand of cards and not refilling your hand until you hit one card, and then you get to refill it again, which I kind of got a kick out of just because of what we talk about on this show. So fundamentally changing the decision space doesn't get much more clear than that.
Yeah.
So do
Um,
you like this stuff? Like, be honest.
okay, so I love deck one and deck two. I think that's amazing. The curated deck one, the curated deck two is great. I would love a curated deck three, a curated deck four.
We've
Yes.
got more. I think we've gotten way more play out of this, and we've primarily ignored the locations because we played deck one a lot. Then we got bored of it, played deck two a lot, and then we kind of went back to
Deck
deck
one.
one with the
Yeah.
locations, and we've just used a couple of the simpler ones just to try it
Yeah.
out to record this podcast. And what felt most fun about it was like revisiting deck one,
Deck
and it
one.
feels
Yeah.
kind of like fresh again.
So for me, Jake, the locations, I really love Cardia and what it's doing. And I think the locations are tricky for me because I think they subvert what I have experienced up to that point as some of the strengths of Cardia. Like my favorite games of Cardia are the ones that go to we're playing 10, 11, 12 cards, right? And it's built to this really climactic moment. And I feel like a lot of the locations fight against that in different ways by giving me less agency. This I have a lot of cards, but now I'm going to play down until I don't have much of a hand and have fewer choices, and then we'll draw back up, or the tension will get sucked out because I win a couple, then Jake wins two, and then if he just wins three in a row, he doesn't have to win five. If he just wins three in a row, he wins, and it sucks the tension out because we don't get to go for this really nice long game. So I don't dislike. I guess I dislike the locations.
Yeah,
I'm happy they're in the box. I don't. They're not my preferred way to play, but I would rather they be there. I don't know that I have the time to or the desire to want to sit down and be like, Jake, here's a cool mixture of cards from deck one and
right.
deck two. Let's play it this way. I could see though if we live together and we're like right, like college roommates, us just doing that and using
Right.
that as a vehicle to learn games. But in my current life, no. How about you?
Well, like I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think I've like slightly more, maybe stronger opinion of the locations after playing them, just because I felt like they did give me like just another layer of looking at the cards differently, having a
Yeah,
slightly different puzzle to work through. Needing to win three in a row, like that changes what you want to play in the first couple of turns because you just don't want to put yourself in a hole even more so. Um, and we also learned that like that would trigger even before getting to activate your loss in round three. So that really changes things, and it was interesting. But at the same time, like all we've been talking about this episode is like how much this game shines in
yeah,
repeated plays. So I think somebody is going to be much better served if they sit down to play this game. Maybe you listen to this podcast and you're like, that sounds like something for me. Like, I would encourage you strongly to just play deck one 10 times if that's all you're going to ever play this game, then play deck one once, deck two once, deck one with each of the different locations as your 10 plays. Because I just think you're not going to get nearly as much of like the fun, rich decisions out of it uh, playing that way. So that does bring me to this kind of like question, which is like, so would we be better served as consumers without endless time if the designers did a little bit more curating like the experience that they truly thought was best? Like I think it would be super dope if like in the back of the rule book, like there's two designers on this, if like each of them had a paragraph it's like uh I'm Fauzi. This is like Fauzi's variant, and like this is my absolute favorite way to play this game. And
Sure.
Matteo did the same, right? It just if it's hard to say like don't put this like extra content in the box, especially in a game that's like $20, right? It's very cheap, so I don't feel like the criticism is not like the plastic miniatures that are unnecessary for the game that's like really elevating the cost of the game criticism.
Yeah.
Like more content, great. Like I'll have it for essentially free if that's what it is. But like I don't want to be the developer, like I want to like shortcut into like what's like the best time I could have with this game in my very limited time I have to play it.
Yeah. So okay. So we've moved into the portion of the debate. Is more always better, or is more better with a caveat, right? And I completely agree with you. I want the designer to give me as much as they possibly want, and it's not always the designer's decision, right? There's publishing decisions
Right.
at play here too. In all cases and in all versions of this, like sometimes designers submit games that publishers cut whole pieces off and make them modules and say you should play it this way, and the designer says I intended that as the game wholesale, and now
Right.
this piece of the game Braj is like this. Like the Lee Water expansion is actually was originally the
Yeah, I
game.
was gonna say, God forbid they cut it off and make it an expansion you have to buy separately.
Right. But yeah. So I really like base Braj. But anyway, I think that in almost all cases, if a designer is excited about something existing and they think it's good, I want it to be in the box. And I want to know when and why I would play with it. So that all of the designer's experience becomes part of what they're giving me in the box to take and make the game the best it can possibly be for me. So I'm not super interested in like go explore yourself how to mix and match the combination of 16 cards in deck 1 and deck 2. I more so would love, to your point, if in the back it said, okay, now try this version of this deck and here's a name for it. And now try this version of this deck and here's a name for it. That's like pulls in a few of the other cards. And then give me a deck 3 that's trying to do something else, because I think
Right.
there are limits and it's going to break. Another good case study for this, Jake, that I feel like we'd be remiss not to talk about is broom service. Can we
Yeah.
talk about broom service? So broom
Always.
service is known for being
Hell yeah, dude.
yeah. This is a game.
You're
Alexander,
speaking my language.
yeah, we love this game. And there's a lot in the box. So there's a double-sided board. There are amulets that you can add when you play. Amulets basically give players reasons to spread out and go to the corners of the board, which you sometimes want to do anyway, but not always. There's a backside of the board, so you get 2 boards in the box. That's cool. There's also extra different types of clouds, the wands that you can add, special fairy wands, I believe. That's like a third mini module. Am I forgetting anything?
Uh I think
I
you
think
are.
it's
Like I
those.
think there's like I don't know if you said it, but like there's tiles that can like go on the hills that you could like activate, or the hills could just be blank. And then there's like forest tiles too that are like if you're the first to go to a forest, you can like pick it up.
Yep.
So basically there's like an extra module for like almost every different terrain type in the game. It's crazy. When I first bought Broom Service, in 2016 or whatever,
Yeah.
um, I was like, this is so sick because like it was just like it felt like an incredible value, right? I
Yeah.
got all like a game, like it feel like that game really feels like you got a game and a pretty robust expansion in the box, which is nice when you're gonna have the price point at like $35 or $40 or whatever it was,
Wow.
back in 2016.
It's crazy.
Uh, but now that I've played with a lot of that stuff, and some of it I think is just like not good.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is controversial, but like you mentioned the ones where you get have to like go to the mountain spaces to
Yeah.
get
The
amulets from the
amulets. Yeah.
mountain. I don't like that one. I would never play with it again because I felt like it just created like a very over centralizing strategy where players really were incentivized to not ignore that because it was just worth so
So
much
many points.
points, and
Yeah.
you got like a bonus action by doing it too. It was just too much, and I felt like that really took away from like the core puzzle of the game. I think
Yeah.
the board on the back where you can like zoom to like little islands and get stuck there forever, it's just like not necessary. Like more, it's like a cool idea, and I tried it like once or try it twice, but like more complexity, not adding to the
Yeah.
actual like super fun interactive like with your friend puzzle of trying to figure out what's going on in the game. So like, well, it's cool that that was like a game that had the experience. For me, it's also a case study in like some of this stuff could have been edited out. But if they're giving it to you for free, okay. But like, I would have had more fun game experiences without some of that stuff in the box.
I think for me and where I'm at, the opportunity cost of playing a game feels relatively high because I don't get to play as many games as I want to play. So when I do play games, I want to play the best possible version of the game I'm going to play. So if I play Broom Service, I want to play it the way that is best. So I think what it sounds like you and I agree with is more is always better if it is good and not just interesting. And for designers, interesting isn't a good enough reason to put something in the box. It needs to be good. And if
Yeah,
it's good, there's no reason ever to not put it there. And just give your players some some direction on when to use it and when not. If your play group would prefer a slightly more interactive game, add this in. If your play group prefers a slightly less interactive game, take this module out. That type of thing is great if you can make it more. But if you just give people a bunch of tools and don't say what they're for, it's like giving someone an IKEA desk and asking them to design it. No matter how excited they are to sit at it and play a game once they're finished, it's going to be painful to figure out how it all goes together, and they're going to just go do something else.
totally. Yeah, and I mean that makes me think of Cardia too, which is like it just tells you like this is like more skulls, right? It's very like unclear what that means. Like,
You should explain that. Yeah.
I interpret that as like more complexity,
Yeah.
which I guess is true. But like deck one versus deck two doesn't really feel more
More
complex. It
complex.
just
Yeah.
feels like a little different in a very good way. And a lot of these location cards are similarly like I think some of them, potentially take away decisions. Like there's one where it's like you can't ever uh was like play the same
Suit twice.
color
Yeah.
suit twice in a row or you instantly
Yeah.
lose. Like, okay, well maybe that's less complex. It's it's another rule, but
More
like,
puzzly.
it's
Yeah.
reducing my options. So that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily I guess it's more skulls because it's like scary. I don't know. So yeah, it doesn't do any of that of like, yeah, if you want more donkey space, use this. If you want
Yeah.
more puzzled, use this. Like there would have been ways to probably do a better job in the rule book for helping players like navigate to what they ultimately want.
And the reality too that can be so frustrating for designers, and I just want to be fair and charitable to all the designers out there who are like, yeah, I've tried to do that, and a publisher literally edited it out of my rule book. Right, like
Well, we're talking to publishers too.
we're talking to publishers too. I think uh, these types of things happen at time, which it's probably really hard to believe for people. But there are actually times where parts of games get cut because they don't fit in the rule book that has to fit in the box. So some explanation that would make some module better gets cut, but the module still stays in. And then that's just the decision that gets made for publishing reasons. And that's kind of lame. And it's also why, Board Game Geek exists for people to just go put rules on and say, this is my official thing. Yeah.
Do you think variability is as much of a selling point in 2026 as it was in 2016.
Mm.
Um, and the reason I ask that is because I think, we've talked a little bit about how it feels like, when there was sort of a huge explosion there, when you look behind me, there's a massive calyx, double calyx filled with 100 games. I think a lot of people listening to this podcast, not all are welcome to this podcast for everybody, have significant collections of 15 plus board games that they could play with. And many people, many of our listeners, I know, much more than 15. Um,
I have
yeah, what do you
thoughts.
think?
I have
Tell
thoughts.
me.
So I think yes and no. If it's variability just for variability's sake and it's not cool, fun, interesting, encouraging you to think about the game differently, I'm not so excited. But what you just said also, yes, lots of us have lots of games, but also how many of the games that you have over there, Jake, could you just pick down and without reading the rule book, play again right now on the table,
Yeah.
right? Not a ton, probably. And I bet a fair amount, but not a ton.
No, but yeah, you're definitely, yeah, less
So
than 20 probably.
something I love about Cardia is between deck one and deck two. I mean, not that it takes Cardia that long to learn the rules, but it's a great example of this. If you've learned deck one, you know how to play deck two because you already know the rules, but it's a whole new experience. And I think that type of variability is awesome, right? If I don't have to really learn the rules to a new game, but I get something that feels really different, to me, that could be
Right.
a huge win and could also be great for if there's a newer player who's not comfortable learning rules and I've already taught them, I can play more game and they feel comfortable playing the same game that's different. That seems awesome. But variability for variability's sake, even in the case of like broom service with a backboard that's maybe less fine-tuned and amulets that maybe push the game's incentives in weird directions, in that case, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, and I think it is less of a draw
Yeah.
now than it once was. And maybe that might just be me being like now 10 years into the hobby, and then when I bought this I was 1 year into the hobby, right? But I really remember, like, if you tell me there's 1,984,621 different ways to like set up the game, that just doesn't do anything
I
to
will
me,
never
right?
experience that anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like tell me which one I should try, thank you.
Yeah.
So I do think it is less of a selling point. However, I do appreciate games that, like, I think that the type of like modules I tend to not want to get out, are ones that are like tacking something on to a game, like,
Hmm.
and here's this other board we can use that does something different. The expansions or modules I like are tend to be ones in which like the game maintains the same scope and rules overhead, but changes the decision space in an interesting way. I talked
Yeah.
last episode about playing the King and Intrigue variant of El Grande, which I think if anything streamlines it, honestly. And but it's the exact same game. People are like, oh, you probably also use the uh, Grande asymmetric power part of the expansion. I'm like, no, not interested in that. Like, I just want the one that changes like the way the drafting actions works. Um, and another good example of that is Renature, which I played too, and I have the expansion for that. That just changes the board in that's it. Basically, it changes the board in very subtle ways. It makes it so that the board is organic and the areas you're buying for control over can change, but it actually takes out a part of the rules in which being the person that completes one of the regions gets you some bonus points. So it's like
Mm.
for every rule they add, they took one away. So I kind of like that, and I feel like that's kind of where like the different decks in Cardia live, but not so much where the locations live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Give us deck three and deck four.
yeah, yeah, and even if it was like this is like the recommended deck 3 based on cards only found in decks 1 and 2 that's gonna
Yeah,
like create the more donkey space version of the game. Like
sure.
I'd be totally interested in kind of like learning that without the time or capacity to like do the research and figure out
Totally.
on my own. And also this is a good opportunity to shout out all the amazing people on Board Game Geek who are doing the hard work and like playing games a million different ways so that they can just tell us in the forums like,
Yeah.
yes, I've played Medina 2700 times and now I can tell you like you should use the well and you should not use the T tiles. Like, okay, thank you.
Yes. That's wonderful. Yeah. I think for me too, Jake, when there's variability, if the game itself can lean into inviting its players into understanding how the variable pieces that are presented in this game interact and give players a way to get an advantage from that, that can be really fun too. But if it's just like all slopped together and you
Mhm.
know distinguishing the flavors of these ingredients versus those, and it's just same, then it's the same soup every time, no matter what the ingredients are, you know? Um,
Totally.
yeah. I also think Cardia, if we had another hour, which we don't, but if we did, I think that the way in which the 16 cards are designed is so tight that in some ways the promise of like I think the reason why there's two separate decks is because there's a lot of like these three cards are creating this interesting
Interaction.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one of those relates to these three, and that's a nice bridge, but you kind of need these three with these three. And if you broke them all up, it would kind of be like taking half the cards from your Honda Odyssey parts and half the parts from your Toyota Sienna and trying to mash them up and make a new band. It's like, well, that was a good part there, but it doesn't really work here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think there are like definitely subtle interactions and kind of like flow charts of
Yeah.
like this card is good
Relationships.
with the yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly everything you said. I don't need to reiterate it. Yeah. What other thoughts, if any, do you have about kind of modules in games?
Well, I, you know, I feel like I don't want to be on the show like advocating for people not to put more in a box, you know? Like I always
We
even if
we
I
always
said
want more. It just has to be free.
and more and free and I want the designer to give me context. So like when Arnak
Right.
comes with a front board and a backboard, so cool. Even if I never play the backboard really, it's so cool that I could and it makes me want to play that game more even if I just want to play the front side more. And I think that's psychologically really interesting. It's almost like the original Zelda having a second quest. So once you beat it, you like it's a remix version of that same game. And when I was a kid, I always thought like, oh, after I beat this first time, I'm gonna go play the second quest and it's gonna be amazing. I never did. I just kept playing the first quest, you know? But the fact that I could made it feel like, oh, it's okay. I'm investing more time in this part of this game I really love because if I ever get bored, I'll still have this other thing. And I think the psychological effects of that as a product are not something to be slept on. We're like, yeah, even just having the board can
I
be create value for you, even if you don't
totally.
interact with it.
And I think we also would be remiss to point out in this conversation what you're saying there. I think is an excellent point. It makes me think that like we aren't necessarily the
Audience.
prototypical
Yeah.
audience for games, right? Like we are people that really like to go deep, right? And we
Sure.
really like to get value out of them. Like you must play Cardia 10 times in a row. Don't change anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
where like that is definitely speaking to a subset, maybe maybe some portion of that subset. We might have a disproportionate amount of that subset listening to this
Listening.
show,
Yeah.
but a lot of people like who tend to be more like, I want new experiences, right? Like, I think having the extra modules and extra variability to
Yeah.
them can give them like a needed rationale for playing a game
To
a
go
second
back.
time or a
Yeah.
third time because like they are going to get that new experience that they want in some way. Like I have people in my game group that like, I love them and they're just like every week I think we're actually like getting better about like trying to play games, but I think I've mentioned on this podcast that like we've played like 300 games together, and like our average number of and we've played like out of those 300 plays, it was like 260 different games or something. It's like
Yeah.
basically we're always playing new games every single week. So like if you have access to that, I think because you're a big collector, you and your friends together have created like a massive collection of games, or you're going to a public board game meetup and there's always something new to try. Like it might be hard to justify coming back
Mm.
to a game. So if like, hey, we're going to come back to this, but don't worry, we're going to try this out. That's a big reason, I think, a big value that these can have for some people, just not necessarily as much us. And also, I think some people love to be in that space of like, I just got this new game, I really dig it, like, and I want to explore it all and figure out what would be the best for me. Like, we don't want to do that because we're dads with kids and scarce time for games. But back in 2016, when I first picked up Broom Service, like that's exactly where my head was at. Like, I want to try this
Yeah.
out and like figure out like what's going to be the best version for me. So
Totally. Really well put, Jake. That's awesome. I love this observation that modular content can be the bridge between hot plays, hot takes, hot people who want to play games once and just
hot
grind through
guys
them.
playing hot games.
Yeah, exactly. Is that wait? Yeah, that's our show, right? And the players who want to go deep. It could be modular content if presented in the right way, with a little bit of designer direction and the good stuff, not just the interesting stuff. That there you might have the secret sauce for appealing to all taste with any type of game. But yeah, Duel for Cardia. What a cool one.
What a cool one. Yeah, I hope people check it out.
Yeah.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of this week's episode, Brendan. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for having this conversation with me. What a joy to talk with you about board games.
It was a blast. Thank you, Jake. And thank you for convincing me to play Cardia, to come back for more repeat plays. I would love to talk with all of you about Cardia. Come talk to us in our Discord. There's a link to join the Discord in our show notes. You can find more about Decision Space on decisionspacepodcast.com. If you want to support the show, you could leave a review. If you made it this far, you have something that you think in your brain about the hour you just spent with us. You could just tell us on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. I don't know that you can do it on Spotify. You can rate it though. That'd be cool. And then also, if you got this far, maybe you want to support Decision Space and look at our Patreon.
Be like Fritz Bronner.
Yes, Fritz, thank you. DecisionspacePodcast.com/Patreon. But yeah, until next time, thank you to Hembry for our intro and outro song, Reach Out. Bye, y'all.
See you next week. Bye, y'all.